Welcome to Dallas Islamic Center. Welcome to Abraham's table. We are really delighted, very happy to have you all here today. I will also, first of all, I will talk about Dallas Islamic Center a little bit. Dallas Islamic Center is fairly a new organization. It was founded in 2007. So we have been in this building since then. Our main programs are, we are organizing Quran studies every Friday. We are having this kind of a dinner and then this kind of a gathering here. And in addition to that, we are having Abraham's table. We are trying to have it every month. And the setting is similar. We are having a speaker and guests. In addition to that, we are having iftar dinners during Ramadan time. We had 6 or 7 iftar dinners in different churches, including the Unitarian Church on, I think, Preston Road. And we have Sunday school for the kids and community talk series. So these are the main events we are having. We are serving to our Muslim community as well as trying to build bridges between our neighbors and our community. So that's all about Dallas Islamic Center. The name of this program is Abraham's Table. Abraham, in Arabic, Ibrahim alayhi salam, peace be upon him. He is the father of 3 major religions. That's the Islamic belief, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. Abraham was known to be a generous prophet, messenger, person, and he would not have dinner without having a guest at his table. So that's why we called this program Abraham's Table. There are 2 reasons. We would like to share food and conversation, and also we would like to meet and talk about our common ground, our commonalities, similarities. We have a saying in Turkish, most of the Muslim members here are Turkish. We say, gönül ne çay ister ne çayhane, gönül sohbet ister çay bahane, means one neither desires tea, coffee, or coffee house. One neither desires tea, coffee, or coffee house. One desires just conversation, to talk. Coffee is just an excuse. So actually this table is just an excuse. We just want to talk and share our thoughts, feelings. Today we have Reverend Patrick Price with us. When I checked today the website, I like this sentence a lot. I'm just going to read this. Patrick Price is a dynamic preacher who crafts worship services that have both continuity and vitality while engaging the mind and the heart. For again, our Muslim friends, mind and heart, marriage of mind and heart means a lot to us. Reverend Patrick Price, since August 2006, serves as minister to the Community Unitarian Universalist Church of Plano, Texas. Currently, he is active with the City of Plano's Multicultural Outreach Roundtable and is working with the Collin County branch of Dallas Area Interfaith on issues of healthcare for the indigent and immigrant rights. He also serves as treasurer of the Southwestern Unitarian Universalist Ministers Association chapter. He is a founding member of the Southwestern Universalist Unitarian Conference Ministers Study Group. Previously, he served 9 years as minister to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Columbia, South Carolina. He also served as UU campus chaplain and guest lecturer at the University of South Carolina, Columbia. The Reverend Patrick Price is a 1995 Master's of Degree graduate of the Unitarian Universalist Seminary, Midville Lombard Theological School. He earned a BA in Political Science from the University of Missouri, Columbia in 1984. Ordained in 1995, Reverend Price received final fellowship with the UUA in 2000. The Reverend Patrick Price was raised in the Christian churches, Disciples of Christ, on the west side of Fort Worth, Texas, where he has a large extended family. He is married to the Reverend Jennifer Ennis, with whom he has a 3-year-old son, Nathaniel, Nate, and their 1-month-old baby daughter, Abigail. Abby, congratulations. So please join me in welcoming Reverend Price to deliver his speech.
like to open with a prayer that's a song that's very common and popular with Unitarian Universalists. Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. I'm delighted to be here with you tonight and hopefully offer some insights and maybe even some challenges. In speaking with my own interfaith colleagues over the years that I've been doing interfaith work, I did it extensively in South Carolina. When we got down to talking about basic issues of what it was in the world that was creating problems of religious conflict, the thing that almost inevitably came up for us was the issue of exclusive truth claims made by different religious traditions. And they are all sources of religious conflict throughout history in all parts of the world. Now, according to Wikipedia, that sage website, the idea of an exclusive truth claim refers to any concept or doctrine that says it alone is the truth and all other opinions are false. So by definition, exclusive truth claims are based in a binary, dualistic worldview. It says, not only am I right, but you, by extension, are wrong. Exclusive truth claims are inherently dependent on human beings to interpret them, and those who have the power to interpret them for others have power over others to set their own agendas. Their greatest fears are usually not about the besmirching of a holy text or holy word, but rather the calling into question of their interpretive framework and their power over it. Hence, exclusive truth claims have a kind of immune response built into them to protect their core ideas from being confronted with contradictory information. The proposition that even questioning an exclusive truth claim itself is a violation of the truth claim aims to keep it from being vulnerable to other views. Unfortunately, as history shows us in even daily exercise now, exclusive truth claims are like a loaded gun that is lying around. And no matter how much those who are careful behave, eventually someone will pick it up and use it to harm someone else, either out of ignorance and or out of fear and anger. Additionally, most claims to exclusive truth are self-justifying. This is, they say, my truth is greater than yours because my truth says it is. Or, we have the truth, capital T-H-E, because our tradition says we have the truth. This is what's called a tautology. So I'm giving you a little theological lesson here tonight. Tautology, which is a self-reinforcing statement that cannot be disproved because the statement depends upon the assumption that it is already correct. Basically, we cannot logically use something as its own proof. It is a violation of logic. And yet, it is the basis for a great many claims in religious traditions around the world of all sorts. As was articulated by Unitarian suffragette Susan B. Anthony, I know some of you have heard of her, in quoting her Quaker friend Lucretia Mott, we seek truth for authority, not authority for truth. We seek truth for authority, not authority for truth. For example, I am not quoting Susan B. Anthony because her saying something gives it more or less credibility. Rhetorically, it is true. But logically, I quote her because she said it so well and so concisely. In a world where we rely on experts for just about everything, it is important to remember that it is not who is saying a thing, but what they say and how they came to it that matters. I find this is an important personal spiritual practice to be self-aware of our human tendencies to cite authority for truth. As religious people, as many words as we may throw at our understandings of God, the holy, the infinite, we must recognize the inherent limitations of words themselves. Now, for a preacher, that's dangerous ground to be walking on, because that's my stock and trade. But words and language are only symbols. They are abstractions. As such, they are human creations, and therefore they are finite and they are fallible. Because words and humans are particular and finite, they cannot express or encompass the totality of the existence of the holy, whether it is finite or infinite itself. Therefore, any human claims to have complete understanding of the holy or to know the whole mind of God are impossible and are a mistake. Any human experience or claims about the nature of the divine, the holy, are only partial and finite, and this leads us then to the issue of idolatry. Now, contrary to the notion that it requires some sort of graven image or stone idol to commit idolatry, the reality is any claim to know the whole mind or God of God or to make an absolute truth claim about God is an act of idolatry. This is because idolatry occurs when we confuse the non-ultimate with the ultimate, the part for the whole. When we confuse human language and symbols about the holy with the holy itself, we commit idolatry. This is like confusing the map for the terrain, like some of us had trouble tonight with Google Maps. Or like the proverbial finger pointing to the moon. The finger is not the moon. It is only the signifier. Therefore, any attempt to make absolute claims about God or the holy is an act of idolatry. Very frankly, any kind of scriptural literalism is also an act of idolatry. Period. Harvard theologian and professor of history Diana Eck writes in her book, Encountering God, that the private ownership of land has become a sacred principle of American life. The ownership of God takes but a little more audacity than the ownership of nature. Whatever we may think of God, the referent of that word, that symbol is a mystery. God is beyond our grasp. God is not ours. Even with the grace of God's revealing, there are, however, Christians and people of many other faiths who seem to have no trouble of speaking of God's ultimacy with one breath and staking out a private territory of God's activity and grace for themselves. But what if we presuppose that God's activity and grace abound? What if we presuppose, as Hindus and other traditions, that the names and forms of one God are many, limited only by our human capacity to recognize them? What might we learn then of the one we call God, who cannot be owned as we wish to own land and property? She goes on, the moment we humans grasp God with jealousy and possessiveness, we lose hold of God. One might add that the religious point here is quite the opposite of God's jealousy, of which we hear so much in the Old Testament. It is rather God's infinite capacity of love, and the problem is human jealousy. Now, my challenge to all of us as members of the family of Abraham, no matter how distantly some of us may be cousins, is that the use of an exclusive truth claim by members of each of our own extended families within each of our communities can no longer be tolerated by any of us if we wish to have a future in this world. This does not matter whether we are Jews or Muslims or Christians or Unitarian Universalists. I'm speaking out of experience when I talk about this because I'm very familiar with the challenges of confronting exclusive truth claims within my own community. Unknown to some of you and even some members of our own faith, we have had internal conflict over exclusive truth claims since the rise of transcendentalism nearly 200 years ago. In more recent years, a fundamentalist version of rationalism, masquerading as an extreme form of religious humanism, has held much of our faith in thrall for most of the latter 20th century. It held that unless you could prove something rationally, even scientifically, then it had no value. It was not to be considered. This exclusive truth claim was repeated in congregation after congregation, and it drove people away who were more spiritually attuned and in need of some form of religious succor. We have worked hard over the years to overcome this kind of exclusive truth claim and have evolved a much more balanced and dynamic approach to understanding truth and our lives and the holy. The reason human beings want answers given to us is that it's easier if we're given the answers. Now, as the father of a small child, I know the day is coming when he's going to have one of those math books that has every other answer in the back. Right? Some of you are familiar with this? Okay. It's easier, but when we have the answers. But that's not the point. So, if we're not given the answers, then we need ways to identify and test what we're able to lay our hands on. So in the marketplace of ideas and information, we can use the opinions of others as guides, but in the end, we have a responsibility to go out and test it for ourselves. Fortunately, there are many windows open to the sky of the eternal. Now, for liberal religionists, not just Unitarian Universalists, there is a process of finding and determining what is true that is as important as the application itself. Essentially, the process of understanding truth is as important as the result or the truth we apprehend. As legendary defense lawyer Clarence Darrow said, "The pursuit of truth shall set you free, even if you never catch up with it." So the content of truth and understanding is not separate from the ways we pursue it, discover, and determine them. Now first, let me be very clear when I say truth. I am speaking about it with a small letter T. Okay, the small t. And it may be more accurate, in fact, to talk about truths, plural, rather than any one large truth, capital T-H-E. The truth, with a definite capital article T, is not attainable. We do not believe that we have or can have all of the truth, but we're also pretty certain nobody else does either. I have to say, this is one of the things as a Unitarian Universalist, I can say, we don't have to claim all the truth, but I'm pretty certain nobody else does. And that's a challenge, because some people really like to think they have it all figured out. We also know that there is a new truth or truths constantly being revealed or made manifest and available to us, and therefore new truths of a religious or other type. The universe is constantly unfolding. God, the Holy, is constantly revealing itself in new ways. These in turn mean that we all have a role to play and a need to share in order to have a better and fuller understanding of what is true. If all we can have is a part of the truth, then we all need to get together and share our parts of the truth to have a better idea of the larger picture. Now, as Unitarian Universalists, there are three basic sources of truth that pretty much all religions use universally. And these are generally what are called tradition, reason, and experience. Now, in most traditions, most religions, tradition is that which is inherited as an understanding of the way things are. And it's usually not allowed to be questioned, and it's usually the lens through which both experience and reason must be funneled in order to be acceptable. I think historically we can think about the discoveries of Galileo and Copernicus, which the Catholic Church decided they were not too happy about at that time. and decided they had to be funneled through tradition, and it wasn't a good fit necessarily. So tradition in most historic religious communities means an inherited lens through which critical reason and experience must be passed, and that tradition itself trumps the other two in a kind of a hierarchy or pyramid or ladder. As religious liberals, one of the things we offer is a slightly different take on the definition of tradition and the relationship between reason and experience. For us, tradition includes not only the things from our own tradition historically and theologically, but also tradition for us includes all of the inherited knowledge and wisdom of humanity. Essentially, a universally open canon of information. Everything is a possible source of understanding. That doesn't mean everything is a source of understanding, but everything is a possible source of understanding. For example, we use the Bible and the Jewish Tanakh, the Quran, the Hindu Bhagavad Gita, the Buddhist Sutras, the Tao Te Ching, as well as the collected works of Shakespeare and the Humanist Manifestos, the Declaration of Independence, the U.S. Constitution, and even the lyrics of rock musician Tom Waits. Now, my parishioners have heard this one, so don't give it away. As I like to explain, Tom Waits actually raises some very important theological questions for us to reflect on, because he says, there is no devil, it's just the God when he drinks. There's no devil, it's just God when he drinks. And if we think about being created in the image of God, that raises some interesting questions for us to ponder, doesn't it? There are many possible sources of truth about the nature of the holy, and our relationship to it. Next, critical thought and reason are exactly that, with all of the nuances and variety from scientific method to logic and debate, and it strives to present the empirical, that which can be observed and verified in objective ways. In contrast, intuition and experience are subjective and highly personal and individual in nature. They are non-logical, not illogical. There are things we can know directly that can only be conveyed to others indirectly. So we understand these three basic sources of tradition, the expanded understanding, reason, and experience, to be interacting at the same level in a dynamic trialogue, in a holographic interaction, in which we use each of these to constantly check against and view the other through. So we're constantly using each of these sources of truth to look at the other two and vice versa, and constantly refining this understanding. So it's an ongoing process. It's a constant revelation. To discover the truths of our lives, here and now, then takes deliberate, intentional acts of attention and practice. We cannot simply rely on what somebody else tells us is so. Education and discussion are religious principles for us, just as action in the world to create change and to know others are also our spiritual disciplines. This is why we are here. As journalist Roger Rosenblatt writes, if one asks then where the larger truth is to be sought, the answer is where it has always been, in history, poetry, art, nature, education, conversation, in the tunnels of one's own mind. And we come here offering this opportunity for you to think about these things. Because we know that we are all stronger together than we are separately. We share our knowledge and understanding not for the sake of conversion, but to deepen and enrich each other's understandings and experience of our own traditions. In a world increasingly complex and with multiplicity, and these singularly rigid ways of thinking are becoming brittle And in that fragility, in that brittleness, they are becoming a danger to all of us. It is increasingly necessary to be able to reflect on the spirit of life in eyes different from our own. To be open to the understandings of the underlying significance of everything different from our own. And understanding then that the interconnected web of all existence is woven of many different strands. I'd like to close this part of the program with a 15th century Indian mystic, poet, and weaver who is known as Kabir, the great one. Kabir, the poet, writes, "Inside this clay jug there are canyons and pine mountains, and the maker of canyons and pine mountains. All 7 oceans are inside, and hundreds of millions of stars. The acid that tests gold is there, and the one who judges jewels. And the music from the strings no one touches, and the source of all water. If you want the truth, I will tell you the truth. Listen, friend, the God whom I love is inside." Peace be upon you. Thank you.